Good evening, everyone. Good evening to you, Miss, and the rest of the class. This evening, our group will be, as a part of our presentation, I will be discussing the two types of forms, which are confidentiality release form and informed consent form. As we go on, first, we are going to discuss what is, or we're going to define what is confidentiality release form. And it says a confidentiality release form is a written authorization by a client allowing the disclosure of their personal information to a third party. This is fundamental in the social work to respect clients' rights and autonomy. So what that is saying is that, let's say, for example, the social worker is working with a client. Now, there are certain information that should remain confidential with the social worker. So what the social worker does is that the social worker in return will give the client this form to sign, that in the event of the social worker having to release information to a third party, let's say, for example, the court might desire information from the client's case, depending to what the case is. So the court is going to give an order, or maybe a court order, to have that filed for the client to be in the court's possession. Let's say if the client is the social worker is dealing with a rape case, or maybe whatever it is. Let's say a rape case in this case, and the social worker is dealing with that client. Now, there are certain information that has to be released to that third party or for the court purposes. So that's where the third party comes in. And this is my insight citation. Now, the question you may ask is, why is it important in social work to have a confidentiality release form? One, because it does what? It builds trust in the client-social worker relationship. It ensures ethical legal procedure. It also maintains a professional integrity. So those are some of the areas that of importance for the confidentiality form. Apart from that, the confidentiality form also have some key elements. Now, what are those elements the confidentiality form has? I will go through them with you, the key elements that the confidentiality form has. One, client's information. Example, you might say the client name, the contact details, etc., etc. Also, it has a purpose of sharing the information. What's the purpose of sharing the information? Data to be collected, specific data, recipients' information, who will receive the information. Let's say in this case, if it's the legal authority of the land, maybe the court needs it. Expiration data, when the consent is expired, when it will be expired, when the consent will be expired. Consent must be informed, understood by both the client and also the the social worker in this case. So the other important thing that we must understand is, when is the confidentiality release form used? When is it used in social work? When? So it is used for referrals to other professional or other services, right? So that is one area it is used for. It is also used for legal proceedings. And so, as we understand, in this case, we must come to grip to understand that when the confidentiality form is used in social work context, we don't use it willy-nilly or just give it to anybody. What we do is that we use it when it is best and most needed to be used. It also can use if you apply in research, including clients' information, and so on and so on. Now, let me take you over to the elements that comprise the confidentiality form. So here, if I take you closer, you will note that the confidentiality form has several components. As I mentioned earlier, so these are the components of the confidentiality form. And I'll take you through them gracefully. So, first we have the client's practical information, such as their name, their date of birth, their address, their phone number, etc., etc. Then it also has the purpose that the form will be released for. So you're going to say, I, the under design, hereby authorize, that's the client speaking, authorize whoever it is, if it's a social worker or whoever it is that the customer, the social work is dealing with, of confidentiality information for the purpose of whatever it is, right? It also contains the information to be released. Additionally, to whom the information will be released. Your name, the organization, or, as I mentioned, to whom the information will be released. If you put the organization name, the address, the phone number of the organization. Authorization. I understand that this release, for example, is voluntary. And so these are some of the particles that they inform the confidentiality release form has on it. Then, of course, as I mentioned, expiration date. This authorization expires on, and you put the date. The signature of the client must be there, the date, who are the witnesses, and other, if you want to put that. So that is for the confidentiality form. All right. Now we will continue with our another form that is used in social work. This time, it is informed consent form. Now, what is the informed consent form? As you read with me, let's read carefully. What is the informed consent form. Informed consent form or informed consent in social work is the process through which clients voluntarily agree to services, interventions, or the sharing of information after being fully informed of the risk, benefits, and the alternatives. Now we move to the importance of the informed consent. There are basically three importance of the informed consent. One, respect clients' autonomy and dignity. Two, builds trust in the client social worker relationship. Three, legally and ethically required for professional practice. So that's the importance of the informed consent. So what are some key components? Now we'll move to the key components of the informed consent form. One, it describes the services offered. It describes the risks and the benefits. Confidentiality limits. It also contains the client's rights. It also discusses willingness of participation. So those are the components or the key components of the informed consent. Question is, when informed consent is needed? One, before starting therapy or services, or in this case, before the social worker began doing his or her job with the client. When referring or collaborating with other services or agencies in this case. In research involving human subjects. When using client information for educational purposes. So those are some of the times in which the informed consent is needed. Now, challenges in practice. Working with minors or clients with dementia capacity or in this case, or diminished capacity. Language or literature barriers. Emergency and so forth. Emergency access situations. So those are some areas or challenges that comes with the informed consent, that the informed consent has. Now we move to discuss what the informed consent form is like. So here, we are going to discuss what the informed consent form information that it contains for social work services. First, it has the client's name, the client's date of birth, the client's number, if applicable, which is phone number, description of the service. I, the under design, understand that I will be receiving social work services, etc., etc. For example, in this case, it can be I'll be receiving clinical service from the social work. If the social worker is a clinical psychologist in this case, or if the social worker is a clinician, well, same thing, then is when it will be said that way. Confidentiality, as I mentioned before, must be stated. I understand that there's the information that the information shared with the social worker will remain confidential, right? I understand also the risk and the benefit involved in me doing the services or the service. It also discusses the client's rights. I understand that I have the right to, let's say, you want to continue with the service or withdraw the service, ask questions and receive clear answers. So those are some of the examples that can be on the informed consent form. Voluntarily participation. You will say, okay, the form also contains voluntary participation. So if you want to voluntarily participate, it's up to you, or you don't want to, it's also up to you. And so those are some of the information that it contains. So you're voluntary participating, or you don't want to participate. That's your right as a client as well. Now, voluntary reception, sorry. Then it also contains a client's signature, the date, the social worker's signature, and others in this case. And so, this evening, these are the components of the confidentiality form and all that it contains. And these are also the definition and components of the informed consent form and the information the form contains. Thank you.